Hello, welcome to my channel. It is not quite 10:30 on January 31st, 2024, which means it is time to wrap up January. I have finished all the books I'm likely to finish for the rest of January. I technically have enough time to finish a short one if I wanted to, but I think I'm going to call it for the month, because the next things I kind of want to get into are audiobooks that I've not started, and they're going to take more than 2 hours. So any books I finish from now on are February or later, and I can start thinking about what I want to do for future. Oh my goodness. I finished 31 books in January. I am actually all caught up for my Goodreads goal right now. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I normally feel a little guilty about some of the shorter books that end up in my count. And there is a short book in the ones I finished in the last week or so that it's really short. It's like 40 pages. It's not the shortest book that anybody in the Adventure-a-thon round one for this year has read for a challenge prompt. So I feel okay about that. I'm definitely within the range of what everybody else is doing. And I've had several long books that balance it out. My average page length for books is still hovering probably around the 300 pages, even with that short book. So I think I'm okay. And it was the only one that was that short. For a bounty prompt and adventure-a-thon where the book had to be under 150 pages. And I looked at all the books that looked pretty short to me compared to what I've been reading, and they're all way too long. So I ended up going with a rather short book that I actually had not read as an adult. I probably read it as a kid, but not this copy, because this one I acquired as an adult. It doesn't have its dust jacket anymore. It's a kid's book. Paul Goble, The Lost Children. Let's see if I can get it so it lines up for English language reading direction. Paul Goble, The Lost Children. This is a children's book. It is lovely. I will show you what I mean by lovely. It's written and illustrated by Paul Goble. He made this whole series of children's books that tell Native American stories using art that's, traditional imagery for those stories, making traditional culture for where we actually live accessible. Which I love, because every time anymore I read a book about colonialism and the mindset of post-colonial colonized peoples, it reminds me so much of Americans and our veneration of all things European, and especially British. Not that the British accent isn't incredibly sexy, but it is really nice to have more authentically North American cultural materials. And I love that these children's books exist. For that reason, and just because they're really cool. This one is about some orphan boys that their community ostracizes and doesn't take care of them at all, and so they go away and they're looking for something else they can be somewhere else where they won't be picked on, and where they'll have enough to eat and whatever else they need. That their needs will be met and they won't be attacked. And ultimately they become the Pleiades. So yeah, it's a really lovely story. Yeah. If you haven't read Paul Goble, check his books out. Yeah, they're for kids, but the stories, I don't think you have to be a kid to really enjoy these books. So quite a long little mini review for such a short book. It's 40 pages, and definitely my shortest book for January. My longest book for January is Dreamcatcher by Stephen King, which should have been my Monster Slayer book for the Adventure-a-thon, which is to read a tome, a long book. But it was already serving another function for Adventure-a-thon, so I didn't want to have to track down yet another book and read it with an enchanted forest in it. So, yeah, I ended up having to read another long book. And technically, the longest book that I read in January is way longer. Let's see if I can do this without knocking all the books off. Oh my goodness. No, I can't. No. Okay. It wasn't a good book anyway. Alright, so this is the largest book I read in January. It is 971 pages. Well, without the author's note at the end, it's 969 pages of text before we get to the stuff after the text. Yeah, but it is large print. This book I started listening to as an audiobook in December. And then our library discontinued their cloud library account mid-book. So all of a sudden my audiobook didn't exist anymore, and I had to get the only copy that was available in the library, and it was large print. All of a sudden a 600-some page book turned into a 900-and-some page book. But I finished a lot of pages really quickly, so it was kind of fun. So the books that I've not talked about in my previous wrap-up include, I think, Thunder on the Right, I hadn't finished yet, by Mary Stewart. Kind of a light thriller. There's bodies and, bad guys and escaping the bad guys just in time. But it's not a lot of blood and guts, certainly no monsters. And the tension level is way lower than in a typical Patricia Highsmith. And I'm still trying to gauge what that means, like what makes one type of thriller so much more intense than another. But this one's light thriller. Thunder on the Right by Mary Stewart. This is the same author that wrote the Arthurian stories. I think it's a quartet. So you might have actually read some fantasy about a kid that goes through magic portals and ends up in King Arthur's stories, basically. That's the same author. That's how I started out reading Mary Stewart. And then I found out as a grown-up that she wrote these books as well. My housemate started out reading these books and does not like the Arthurian books at all. So you never know. So this is the last of my paperbacks that are being added to my finished stack. I finished Boot of Suburbia. This is my last book that I finished for January, of course. This is the one that I have to read for extra points for the TBR Takedown game in Reading 1001, the Goodreads group. And it still has some bookmarks stuck in it because I have to write a review on it. And so I just stuck bookmarks where I wanted to notice specific things. So it looks a bit like a fat, cold hedgehog, almost. I don't know. Yeah, so that'll be later tonight that I write the review. And I finished several other books that I was really focused on finishing Adventure-a-thon bounties this last week. So all of these satisfied some sort of prompt for Adventure-a-thon, which I did very well on. I finished most of the main quest prompts and all but 2, I believe, of the bounty prompts. So very good. And I'm slowly developing my character. I've gone with Ravenmount as my character name because that is kind of me. And it does sound like the sort of name that would get attached to someone who goes around cloaked and doing magic and adventures. Yeah. So I finished The Magician King by Lev Grossman. Second book in the series. Magicians is the first one. And Magicians was about kind of a magic school and you know, finding out that you're a wizard and what do you do about it and how do you become a wizard proper and how do you get into the school and do people get kicked out and does everyone who does magic get to go in the school? And I liked that one better. The Magician King, they're going adventuring. But that's really the only plot for the longest time. It's just random adventuring. Kind of like The Voyage of the Dawn Treader from Narnia. And actually, there's a lot of Narnia references in this series. So it's not an accident. When they get to the edge of the world in Hilary, the magic kingdom in this series, it's very much like the edge of the world in The Voyage of the Dawn Treader. It's, you know, very, 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 very similar. There's 2 kings and 2 queens of Hilary. And there's the magic portals that get you from our world to their world. And there's it is kind of a retelling of Narnia, but with extra stuff, and it's darker. Although some parts of Narnia, if you paid attention, are pretty dark. The last battle in the Chronicles of Narnia is really dark. In a great way that I really loved from my first reading when I was about 8. So, if that says something about me, yes, The Last Battle was my favorite Narnia book when I was 8. Okay. If you haven't read those, by the way, what are you waiting for? They're amazing. This is the next book that I finished, or one of the next books I finished this week, The Tower of Nero by Riordan, the last book in the Trials of Apollo series. And no spoilers really here. Yes, Apollo eventually stops being Lester Papadopoulos and gets to be Apollo again. And how he gets there is the plot of the story, and there are many adventures and things happen, and there's kind of a happy ending for kind of everybody, sort of, which is how you know that it's kind of the end of the series, because otherwise Riordan doesn't always give all of his characters happy endings in books prior to the last book of a series. Some of them have really nasty endings, actually. And yeah, they don't necessarily roll back those bad endings by the end of the series either. I like that about them. They're realistic. Bad things happen, and sometimes you can't just make them unhappen. I finished City of the Beast by Michael Moorcock. Middling Michael Moorcock book. It was fun while I read it, but not really well written. Just kind of, you read it fast and it's okay. You read it any slower and you start noticing things. There's a reason this is not one that everybody talks about. Yeah. It was okay. It reminded me actually of C.S. Lewis's Perlandra series in the style of fantasy storytelling. So maybe I just have C.S. Lewis on the brain, but they did have kind of the same vibes as some of that way of doing fantasy. Anyway, I think I gave it a 3 or 3.5 stars. 3.5 stars on Storygraph. I think I did end up giving it a 4 on Goodreads, just because I didn't want to round it down to a 3. And my favorite book out of the ones that I hadn't finished in my last wrap-up was this one, The Garden of Evening Mists. This one is set in Malaya, and we follow a woman who, as a young girl, had been imprisoned in a Japanese internment camp, and all of her family died. She's the only survivor from the ones that were put in these camps. And yeah, she has issues. Partly, the camp she was put into, nobody knows that it even existed. So she can't get any closure. She doesn't know where her sister was buried. And meanwhile, she's trying to get this master garden designer from Japan to help her design a Japanese garden for her sister as a memorial, because her sister really liked Japanese gardens, and this guy happens to be in Malaya anyway, so maybe he would do a garden. And that starts them on a long relationship that's very complicated and gets into a lot of how people heal from really bad things, and if they heal or if they just move on. And there's all sorts of stuff in this book. This would be a good book for a book club that wants to unpack things, because there's so much going on besides just the main plot of the story. So that was a 5-star and a lovely book. And probably the other book out of this stack, I haven't really assigned it a rating yet, but it's probably a 5-star, is Buddha of Suburbia. About a young man growing up in England who, his family is from India. They're Muslims, and in the 70s there was a lot of racial prejudice and violence against people that were not white in the London area especially, which is where they're at. And then on top of that, this kid, besides being part Indian and part white, because his mother is from England, white lady that met his father by chance and horrified her whole family by marrying someone that's not white and probably not a Christian even. And now the kid is finding out that he's bisexual. And that's not something his parents can deal with, and not something that the general society is ready for either. So he has some things he has to work through. And there's a lot of adjustment going on in this book, because everyone around him is also adjusting to being in the London area instead of where they came from, especially his family members that came directly from India. Society is very different in London suburbs than it is in northern India. So there's all sorts of things that come into his growing up process. And it's a coming-of-age story. Reminds me of quite a few other coming-of-age stories about young men in interesting districts. But with the racial and bisexual element thrown in. So, yeah. Not sure I had any idea what that was about before I started it. So, I was mildly surprised when I got into it. Yeah. Mostly the soundtrack. I started pulling all of the albums that were mentioned in the book and putting them on a Spotify playlist. And it definitely got me into the book. It also got me thinking about watching George Gently story episodes, because it's kind of that vibe, that kind of music, and yeah. So So these are all the books I finished in the last however many days it has been since I updated last. Oh my gosh, I drop all the books. So now is the how many books did I finish in print. And I've actually got them here. That's what's been falling off my chair. Oh my goodness, they're all falling off. And I'll have to do them in 2 stacks. Because no, I can't hold them up. So I got all these guys. And then I'll put these on the table. Alright, and then all the rest of the books that I finished in print in January. This is why I do such large TBRs. Sometimes it works. So yeah, I had a good year, or good month, good year too actually, and this is the first month of the year, so 2024 is going really well right now. My genre blanket still needs to have literally all of those first books that I showed you added to the blanket. So it is no longer caught up at all. So I'm going to definitely do my next one a little differently. This one's the first blanket, and I'm doing baby blankets. So when it gets square, I will finish off the edges and put it in a stack with our charity blankets. And at the end of the year, I should have a small stack of baby blankets just from my genre blankets. So I'll put it kind of sideways so you can see what's been going on here. So here's the beginning. Let's see if I can get the focus and the light so it's not too bad. So I've changed the stitch pattern for different genres. And in between each genre row, so the yellow and the blue are genre rows. Blue is nonfiction, yellow is fiction. The stitch pattern is the subdivisions. So if it's fantasy or science fiction, then it gets the stitch pattern on this end. If it's murder mystery or thriller, it gets the fan stitch. If it's just general fiction, it gets half double crochets. If it is a science nonfiction, it gets this fat stitch. If it's a memoir or biography, we get the fan stitch but in blue. And these white and gray rows are ratings rows. The gray is terrible, terrible. Don't read this book. White is good. The width is how emphatic that is. So the one with the gray was terrible, terrible. Don't read that book. It was terrible. That was the gore book. If you like really incredibly badly written smut, maybe you'd like it. But it's not just smutty. It's really badly written. So I'm not even concerned about the content at that point. It's just a bad book. So that's this one. The next one, though, was Woman at 1,000 Degrees. And that was an amazing book. So it got a much bigger row for its ratings row. I'll pull it back, see if we can get the white from the yellow. So, yeah, it's been a fun project so far. I hit a string of really mediocre, like they weren't bad and they weren't good, they were just okay books. So this chunk near this end, they're all yellow because at that point the ratings row isn't white or gray, it just stays the color of the book. So that's the genre blanket. I had a few people asking what it was or how exactly I'm doing it. And I don't know how long it'll actually take me to finish it, because once I log those books I just showed you guys, that's 3, 6, 7 books. And there's, I think, one more audiobook as well. I'll have to check to see if, I still have, oh no, I have one audiobook and one other print book that I showed you guys but hadn't done the rows. So I have 9 books that I still need to update this blanket with. That means 18, maybe 19 rows, depending on if any of those are double rows. And actually, one of the books I need to log is a short story collection. Those are double row color rows. So at least 19 rows. So this might actually not make it through February. It might be square long before then. And I think when I start the next one, I'm going to pick some colors that are a little bit less pastel. It's still going to have to be something that works for baby blankets, just to fit the project. But babies can't really see pastel, so the baby might like more contrast anyway. And I'm getting bored with pastels. So I haven't decided what colors I'm going to go with yet, but I am going to change it up a little bit. Maybe work out my stitch patterns a little bit differently. This was the trial run just to see how you can encode all that information in one object. And I think the border is going to be the number of books that I finished from the Boxall's 1001 Books You Must Read Before You Die list, since that is a project I've been doing since 2007. So it's kind of my overarching reading goal on top of all these other cute little projects I've been doing. So what have you done to your head, you ask? Oh boy. My next video for February. New month, new me. My head is changing color. What color will it be? Well, the next video might still be in this artificial lighting. We'll see. But probably it'll be in tomorrow's lighting. I will see if I can do one in daylight, but I'm still recording in a space where people are walking through a lot. And I'm getting used to filming at night. I think I'm okay with that part. I just don't get to do much with daylight. And I am getting another space in my room set up so that I can do daylight recording in there. If I have it done by tomorrow, I might try to show you guys what my hair looks like without artificial light on it. But it is going to be a burgundy, a variety of burgundy. So my sister calls it purple, but we haven't seen what it is in its finished color on my head yet. In the box color, it looks like it's supposed to be kind of a purple. So that should be fun. I have not done this color before. I usually do auburn or a dark red, sometimes a carrot top red, and sometimes dark brown. So this one's a new one for me. All right. Last few things I wanted to show off before I sign off my wrap up for January. While I was on my last couple reading sprints with people today, I mentioned I got a lobster. Look at how cute he is. Oh my goodness, he's adorable. I got drawn in by the antennae. Look at how cute he is. So, I got myself a lobster. I needed a lobster. And then I got myself something else, which I'll have to actually go over here to grab. I went to a thrift store, and guess what I found? It's a little espresso set. So this is the little jug. A little cup. It's got a lobster on it. And a little plate with lobsters on it. So today has been a lobster-themed day. But they were very cute. And I will definitely be doing some either strong coffee or strong tea in them. I do like very strong coffee and very strong tea. So they will get used, not just, put on shelves as decorations. And I got, lots of sparkly things. So one of the things I'm going to be doing on my videos, and I will probably start on this one, is I am going to be putting a music link in the description of every video I post from now through the end of the year. Because I used to be a music blogger, and I still have lots of really incredibly creative musician friends that make really great music. And I would love to be able to share some of that with you guys, but I don't want to turn Ravenmount back into being a music blog, partly because I can't really log into the account that's called Ravenmount yet. Anyway, so for now, the only part of what I'm doing on social media that's the music stuff is my Ravenmount on Facebook. And it still has kind of a following, but it's really just where I signal boost things that bands have been sharing. So I'm not going to be doing a lot of music posts. I don't really want to deal with all of the copyright stuff around sharing music and how long a snip you can use and stuff like that. It's just way more complicated than I'm up for right now. I just want to talk about books. So, I'm just going to put links in the descriptions, one link per video. If you're interested in music and want to check it out, they're all going to be things that I think are really good, that I enjoy listening to, and bands that I also enjoy their live show. So if they tour near you and you can see them, definitely check them out. So I haven't decided which one I'm going to share today, but a band I really liked when I was a music blogger, they're called Petals of Spain, from the Denver area. They were inactive for years, and all of a sudden this week they had a new music video popped up on my YouTube homepage. So that was very exciting. So I might share that, because it's a good video, and they're still an incredible band. I don't know if the new video means they're touring. I hope that means they're touring. So if you see a Petals of Spain concert in your area, definitely check it out, and check out the video in either case, because it's really good. So I will get this video uploading. It will be up before February begins, hopefully. And I'm going to go and wash out the hair dye on my head and see what my head looks like. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye, guys.